Hi beautiful, welcome to my channel. Today's video is going to be a rankings video. We are going to be ranking my #1 eyeshadow palette from my top 10 brands. I am so excited because you guys know I love rankings videos, and especially if what we're ranking is eyeshadow palettes. So I had a difficult time choosing my favorite palette from each brand, but I feel like I have come to a consensus with myself that this is what we're going with, and I'm so excited to share with you guys what my #1 palette is from my top brands. So yeah, if you guys are excited for the video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up before you leave. Also, if you're new to my channel, please don't leave without subscribing. Check out the rest of my videos. I know you'll like it here. So okay, let's go ahead and get started. I believe the first person that I saw make this video was my friend Morgan Turner. She is always full of the best ideas, and so I had written it down a long time on my little notebook right here, and I hadn't gotten to it until now. I did also see Mandy Lee's version of Morgan's video, and that's actually the title that I'm going with, because I absolutely loved both videos, but I really loved the title of Mandy's video, my #1 palette from my top 10 brands. So that is what we're going with, and I of course will link both of their videos down in the description box, so definitely check them out. Morgan and Mandy are definitely two of my favorite creators here on this platform, so please check them out. And let's go ahead and get started. I will say I don't have these in any particular order, because after picking my brain about what my #1 palette was from each of these brands, I didn't want to also organize them by like least to most favorite brand, but I will say that I did leave my top favorite brands for the end. Alright, let me stop rambling and let's get started. My first brand I'm going to mention is Morphe brushes, and I absolutely adore my original Jaclyn Hill palette from Morphe. This was the first Morphe palette I ever bought, and I really love the Jaclyn formula within Morphe much more than I like the Morphe formula on its own. I feel like these eyeshadows are just a little bit more buttery and creamy. This is an absolutely fantastic palette to have, and I feel like it is definitely the best Morphe has come out with. I feel like these big Morphe palettes can sometimes be a little bit too repetitive. Like they'll come out with a color story, and within the same palette you have slightly different tones of like the same shade, and I feel like with this one you do get a variety that makes sense. I definitely like the variety of looks that you can get with this palette, and to be honest, Morphe eyeshadow formulas are nowhere near my favorite formulas, but they are such affordable palettes that if you're getting into makeup, I feel like it's totally worth it for you to grab one of these so that you can practice your makeup looks and practice your blending, and you know, not spend an arm and a leg on a palette that you might end up not liking as much. I think one of my favorite things about this palette is definitely how many really nice transition shades it has. I really love how creamy and pigmented these lighter matte shades are right here, but then it also has some really nice, much deeper shades in the palette that you can really intensify your looks with. And besides that, the shimmers are not bad at all. Really nice shimmers in this palette as well, so definitely one that I think is worth checking out. The second brand I'm mentioning in this video is going to be NARS, and my #1 palette from NARS is the Wanted palette. I absolutely loved this palette when it came out. I think it was now like 3 years ago. And the reason I absolutely love this one is because I think it's such a versatile palette. You can get such nice, natural, everyday looks with this palette, but then it also has the fun colors right here in the last row that you can intensify any looks with, or just add a pop of warmth to your look, which I really love. Now, what made me pick this palette specifically over the rest of my NARS palettes, besides the very versatile color story, is the formula of these shades. So NARS has really beautiful matte shades. They have always had really beautiful matte shades. Very blendable, very lightweight, very finely milled. But besides that, this formula right here of these two shades specifically, I am a sucker for glimmery shades, and you'll see that throughout the rest of my favorites, because most of my favorite palettes have really nice glimmery shades. By glimmery, I mean they're not like a chunky glitter type of shade. They're like a nice veil of shimmer with a little bit of like sparkle that's been like added on, and those are some of my favorite formulas because it makes your eyelids look wet. Kind of like the inner corner color that I'm wearing today, that kind of like really nice, sophisticated, shimmery look. And this palette has, I think, 3 shades with that fabulous formula that I love, and that is what makes the Wanted palette my #1 NARS palette. Alright, so the next brand is Urban Decay, and I'm sure a lot of you will guess this, but my favorite Urban Decay palette is this one right over here. This is the Born to Run palette by Urban Decay. I love how versatile this palette is as well. It has a top row that is all really nice nude neutral shades, and I absolutely love to always have that option. But then besides that, it has some really fun pops of color, shades like these pink, this warm orange right here that can really change a look on the eyelid. It has some turquoise and blue shades as well that are so freaking pretty. And then it of course has really beautiful shimmer shades that are still really nice and wearable, so you can literally do any type of look with this palette. You can do a night look, a very dark look, a very light look, a very colorful look, a very nude look, like anything comes out of this one. The eyeshadows blend amazingly. This was like the last Urban Decay palette that I fell in love with. Everything they've released after this one's been okay, but this was the last one, in my opinion, that they released that felt very special. And I'm really looking forward in the future to have more special palettes from Urban Decay come out. We'll see if our wishes come true. But if you guys don't have this Born to Run palette yet, hopefully they still sell it. I'm not even sure that they do, but this is definitely the best eyeshadow palette from Urban Decay. I absolutely love everything about it, and it's just such a versatile palette. I need to stop repeating myself over and over, but it just is such a nice palette. The next brand we are going to talk about is ColourPop, and this one was really hard for me to choose a favorite palette from because I love a lot of the ones that I have. And it's not like I have a huge ColourPop palette collection. I usually only buy the ones that I find truly special because they release so much. But it was between the So Jaded palette by Kathleen Lights, the Raw Beauty Kristi at Forest Sight palette, and the I Love Sarai Through My Eyes palette. And the I Love Sarai Through My Eyes palette is, I think, my favorite. I'm still debating, but I'm going with this one. I really love this color story because, again, it's the versatility and the shimmer shades for me. This color right here, Divina, makes this whole palette be so special. I really love this really dark eggplant shade. I feel like shades like that specifically complement my eyes really nicely. And this one right here can be combined with any other of the lighter matte shades in the palette and make the look really sultry and sexy. I also love the shimmer shades in this palette. Muse, Mesmerize, and Lucido right here. These shades are so freaking beautiful. They have a really nice shimmer base with some like glimmery sparkles over top too, and they make your eyelids really pop. Oh my god, and then this like moody shade here, this like super beautiful green color. So stunning. Did I mention Flex as well? Anyways, this palette, as you can see, has like all of the shades that I love, and so that is why this is my #1 ColourPop palette so far. I'm sure they have a lot more coming as per usual. The next brand coming is ABH, and I do have an ABH rankings video if you guys want to see me rank all of my ABH palettes from my least to my most favorite. Definitely look up that rankings video on my channel because that was a lot of fun. And the one that came out at the top is still my #1 favorite. That video was filmed like a year ago, but she really hasn't released palettes since, so nothing has changed. And so the Soft Glam palette is still my favorite Anastasia palette. This right here is my #1. This palette is incredible because it is a beautiful warm tone nude palette, and it has such beautiful metallic shades absolutely love these. This gold right here is so freaking stunning. And then of course I love the matte shades in the palette. This color here, Mulberry, one of my favorite mattes. It is so pretty to like add to like the outer corner of your eye looks. It has a black. I also love Cypress Umber. Cypress Umber I think is one of my favorite matte browns in any palette. I absolutely love this brown. It also goes really nicely to darken up an outer corner. This one I've done like whole like dark brown eyeshadow looks with, and I love it. And so this palette has some of my absolute favorite matte shades and a good combination of metallic shades as well in it that make it very versatile. And I feel like color stories like this one are definitely some of my favorite ones to have because they are my go-to looks. The next brand we'll talk about is a brand that I tried less than a year ago, and that is Kaleidos. I do have, I think, 4, 5, maybe 6 palettes from Kaleidos so far, and I feel like this is going to come to like no surprise to you guys. My favorite Kaleidos palette, hands down and by far, is the Angelica Nyqvist Club Nebula palette by Kaleidos. I have been lusting over this palette since it came out, and I feel like it took me by surprise because this is a color story that I usually would not be super attracted to because I'm more of like the warm neutrals, boring type of person. However, this Club Nebula palette is everything. I absolutely love the light shimmer shades that this palette has. Like, come on, right? That on the eyelid makes any eye look just be so freaking stunning. Absolutely love those light shimmer shades that this palette has. And then the colors that Angelica chose are just incredible. Chef's kiss, top notch, absolutely in love with them. These colors back here, these 4 shades are so nice. Love this purple and blue and like turquoise colors. Look at that. These are the best outer corner colors for colorful eye looks ever. This turquoise here is so freaking stunning, and the formula in this palette is the creamiest. It blends out really nicely, and it's not an expensive palette. I think it's like around $40 to $45, which is so incredible because it truly has quality to like be sold for even more than that. So this is definitely highly recommended at this point. I keep wanting to use it on like videos and Instagram posts, but I feel like I've posted enough about it and I don't think it's being sold right now. Hopefully they'll bring it back again. So I don't want to tease you guys, but if you got it, consider yourself lucky because this palette is so incredible. I love it. Can you guys tell? I love it. Now we get into our top 4, and the next brand I want to talk about is Charlotte Tilbury. And my favorite palette from Charlotte Tilbury has to be the Pillow Talk Instant Eye in a palette. Where to start with this one? It has the creamiest, most blendable shades. It has a really nice natural looking color story with a little bit of a pink pop right here at the end. And you can come up with such beautiful looks with this palette. I like that she has darker shades as well that you can kind of deepen up some looks with. This pink color right here looks a little intimidating, but it blends out with any of the rest of the mattes in this palette so beautifully. Charlotte definitely did some really beautiful soft formulas for this palette, and I really love all of the matte shades that she included in this one. Hands down my favorite Charlotte palette, and I really also love how she divides everything by looks so that if you're a beginner or you just don't want to think about your eyeshadow application in the mornings, you can have it done for you. You use the first 3 shades, that's a look. Second 3 shades, that's another look, you know? And if you want to add something different, you can go back and forth, absolutely, but it's made for you. You don't have to even think about it. And I always say this and I stand by it. I think Charlotte Tilbury eyeshadows are one of the most beginner-friendly eyeshadows ever, if not the most beginner-friendly eyeshadow palette, because her eyeshadows blend into nothingness. Like, they blend so seamlessly that you don't have to work hard at it, if that makes sense. So these are very beginner-friendly and just a wonderful, beautiful palette. I love the packaging too. And overall, I'm just very happy that this palette exists. I absolutely love it. The next brand we'll talk about is Huda Beauty. I do also have a Huda Beauty rankings video up on my channel. She has released palettes since I uploaded that rankings video. However, my number one palette is still the same, and that is the Mercury Retrograde eyeshadow palette from Huda. Honestly, I don't know that she'll ever make a palette that is better than this one, I'll say, because this palette is the dreamiest, most beautiful palette ever. I think one of the things that definitely makes this palette special is the shimmer shades in this palette. They have such a nice glimmery finish, such a nice shine, that wet looking finish that I absolutely love in shimmer shades. And then she also has some really nice matte to complement those shimmers with. This matte purple here, the best. Such a beautiful color. Again, one of those colors that looks so good on the outer corner, and this is honestly one of the few cool tone purples that I love. Usually I go more for those eggplant type of purples because for some reason they tend to blend better. Anytime a palette has more of a blue tone purple like this one, they're always kind of like on the patchy side. And with this color specifically, I don't experience that, and so this shade for me is very special. But then besides that, I was telling you guys about the glimmer shades. These almost feel like a cream eyeshadow. They're so soft. I need more fingers to show you this. I mean, just look at these. Aren't they dreamy? This just speaks for itself. I could stare at my hand for hours because I am mesmerized by the shine of these shadows. I really love how reflective these eyeshadows are, and pigmented and buttery and blendable. Again, they almost feel like a creamy shadow. They are so incredible. The bigger palette that Huda has released since this one is the Naughty Nudes palette, and that does not even come close to how good Mercury Retrograde is. If you have been like wanting to get yourself into like some colorful eyeshadows but you're not so bold, this is definitely a palette that you can try. I have a 5 Looks 1 palette with it that I definitely recommend that you check out because I made some really nice wearable looks with this palette that I think you guys are going to really enjoy, and they're all so dreamy. Like, this palette is dreamy. That's how I would describe it, and it's definitely one of my top favorite palettes of all time. Again, I really don't know that Huda will ever be able to create a palette that is more beautiful than this one. I feel like she outdid herself with this one, and I will be very surprised the day that something comes on top. We have done 8 brands so far. We have 2 to go, of course, Natasha Denona and Pat McGrath. Who else? And I am dying to show you guys my number 1 favorite palette from 2 of my absolute favorite brands. I'm going to do Natasha Denona first, and my favorite number 1 best ever Natasha Denona palette is the gold palette. You guys know I love the midi size eyeshadow palettes because they are $65. They are so much more cost effective. I don't love her $129 palettes because I feel like they're not worth that much for the most part, and with one exception. And that is my gold palette from Natasha Denona, because I think this is worth every single penny that I paid for it. I am obsessed with this palette and its formulas and the amazing combination of colors that come in this one. This is the best holiday palette and just the best palette to have around for any glamorous natural look that you want to have. I think Natasha Denona matte shades are my number 1 favorite matte formulas of any brand. I love how blendable and creamy and pigmented these are. Like, nothing comes close to how easy these are to blend into one another, how good the pigmentation is on her matte formula. Kudos to her because she did that with this formula. It is incredible and it doesn't have any comparison. Like, this is my favorite because it is the creamiest, softest, matte, most pigmented formula ever. I absolutely love it. Now, Natasha Denona shimmers are really good, but I feel like the ones in this palette are even better than usual. And the reason is that this palette has those like glimmery shades, as I like to call them. The ones that don't have a super strong base but really make your eyes shine. And so shades like this one right here, for instance, just look at that. Look at that, it's so freaking beautiful. This white one here as well. Look at that. So pretty. This is like the perfect inner corner, just like peekaboo color. Like, look at me, I'm shiny right over here. This one right here as well. Such pretty, wet looking, beautiful shimmer shadows. Definitely between those and how beautiful these mattes are, and the fact that this is just like a really nice natural color story. Not too warm, not too cool, very versatile with a little bit of a pop of color as well. All of that together makes this palette my #1 Natasha Denona eyeshadow palette. I really hope that you guys can see how passionate I am about this. Okay, now last but not least, Pat McGrath. Pat McGrath is also one of my absolute favorite eyeshadow formulas, which is one of the reasons I left it for last. I think her and Natasha Denona take the cake for me. By the way, I have rankings videos on Huda, Pat McGrath, Natasha Denona, and Anastasia palettes, I believe. So if you want to see what my #2 favorite, my #3 favorite in each brand is, definitely check those videos out. But anyways, my #1 palette from Pat McGrath is this one right over here. This is the Mothership #7, the Divine Rose palette. I have it in the limited edition pastel pink shade, which is so freaking pretty. Absolutely love it. Maybe she'll bring that back too at some point. Hopeful thinking. Okay, the reason I picked this one as my #1 favorite palette from Pat McGrath is because it is very versatile. I feel like I absolutely love each of my Mothership Pat McGrath palettes, and each one of them is a mood. Like, if you want to go for dramatic pink shades, you pick Mothership #8, which is what I'm wearing on my eyes today. And it's like this palette's like sassier sister, like she's a little bit more bold with her color choices. And this one right here is a little bit more on the conservative side, but I think that's what makes this palette special for me, because I can use this palette on a daily basis, but I can also be very glamorous with this palette. And I feel like with most other Pat McGrath palettes, you can only be glamorous, you know? I love them all, but they're only glamour. This one can give you a little bit more everyday colors too. I think Pat McGrath's matte formula takes a little bit of getting used to. However, once you get the hang of them, you absolutely love them, because they are very versatile matte shades. They can be very sheer, or they can be built up very intensely, which is why she doesn't need to put a lot of matte in her palettes, which I now understand and I used to complain about all the time. The second thing, and what makes Pat McGrath palettes very special, besides the luxurious packaging that is a whole experience on its own, is the Astro Blitz shades, which you can always find in a little quad at the end of her palettes. And these shades are special because they are dual chrome, glimmery, beautiful shades that, again, so pretty, make your eyelids look wet, have such intensity, such pigment. My favorite shade in this palette is this one here, because I mean, just look at that. I think I'll just shut up and let you stare at my fingers for a little while, and I know that you'll understand why this is the shit. Absolutely love the Astro Blitz formula from Pat McGrath. I mean, just like, just look at how beautiful and pigmented and glimmery and light reflecting these shades are. Like, there is not much I have to say about this one. The color story is great, versatile, you can use it for every day or for special occasions, and it has this amazing formula right here, which is just like witchcraft. Is so incredible. It makes your eyes pop like no other. Again, I have Mothership #8 on my eyelids today, and you guys can see how like beautifully pigmented her eyeshadows are. That was it. That was my #1 favorite palette from my top 10 favorite eyeshadow brands. This video was a blast to make, to say the least. I had such a fun time not just filming and telling you guys how passionate I feel about these eyeshadows specifically, but I also had a really fun time just thinking about what palettes to pick to show you. So I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed filming it. If you liked it, don't forget to please give the video a thumbs up before you leave. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Patty, and I would love it if you hit that red subscribe button and join the family. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I love you all so much, and I hope to see you back in the next one. Bye!